So I'm going to ask you a question that might be a little bit controversial. And so I'm curious what your takes on this is going to be.
You want a hot take?
Hot take, essentially, yeah. Welcome to Ramcast, a Christian podcast designed to encourage believers in their walk with God and to lead the unsaved to Jesus Christ. Hello, I am Ramiro, and today you're listening to the Ramcast podcast. Today I am with our music pastor, Pastor Scott Mayer, and we're going to be asking him different questions and seeing if he has the ability to respond. Do you think you have the ability to respond, Pastor Scott?
I will try my best.
You will try your best. You know, that's all that matters. Just like, even a third grade middle schooler can ask those questions, and I know you love third grade middle schoolers
yes.
to pieces.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so first off, talk a little bit about your family, your job, hobbies, just kind of generalizations of your life.
Okay. I got married after I finished my master's degree and married my wife, Catherine, and we have 4 boys. They are right now between the ages of 19 and 24. So all close together at one time. We had 4 boys, 4 and under, for about 2 months. And so that was fun. We have a wonderful family. We enjoy each other very much. I served in Illinois right after college for about 27 years at a large ministry in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, about 10 minutes from O'Hare. And so I was able to have a wonderful ministry there with not only teens but adults, senior saints, just a varied variety of ministry, mainly focused on music. And so some pastoral work, but mostly because of the size of the ministry, it was mostly music oriented.
How big was that ministry as far as like people are concerned?
I had about 50 in my concert choir in high school, had about 80 in my adult choir in church, and we had a good orchestra. And so yeah, I probably would say weekly I was ministering in music to about 120, 130 people every week. Wow. In music. So.
That's good. What are some hobbies in, the little bit amount of free time that you have? What are some just fun things you like to do?
Well, we love spending time as a family. I have 4 boys. We prayed for all boys. And so God answered that prayer. We are all very competitive.
Yeah,
and we love to win. And so we love having friendly competitions, whether it be on the court or in the field or in the upstairs throwing darts, playing ping pong, foosball.
I remember going into your upstairs of your house and you have a ping pong table, and we played a game where I can't think of the name, but where you have like each person like a circle.
Round robin. Yes.
And I think you won actually.
Oh, I would hope so.
In your home court. You got to defend the home court. But no, you and Brother Ryan, who goes to our church, you guys were battling it out.
Yeah.
To the very end, and you won. So you kept the pride in.
Yes.
So otherwise you would have been forced to give him a trophy.
Oh, that would have been embarrassing.
Yeah. We don't want to see that.
No, that's not good. So anyway, we have a nice time with our families. We go camping once a year, usually in the summer. Love skiing, tubing, just boating, pleasure cruising as well. Jet skiing. We love that kind of thing. Water sports, and the tent comes because we want to be on the water. So that's not my favorite thing, but we put up with it a lot. So love by myself, bowling, love playing the piano, political science.
Really? I didn't know
reading political science books, history of the United States, presidential history, watching the news and different commentaries on current political events. And so, that's kind of what I do.
There's a lot of political events to choose from these days. It is certainly not boring.
No,
it's not boring. So I'm going to start off with probably maybe the most important question, or one of the most intriguing questions in my opinion, which is, why did you decide to go into ministry? From the world's perspective, it may seem, well, ministry is just like a waste of time. What's the point of that? So what was kind of your purpose? What motivated you to going into ministry?
Well, when I was young, my parents wanted me to take piano lessons. And so I very much enjoyed that. And I had a gift at piano. And so I was able to take lessons from my mom for a little bit, and then other people. Indy, one of my professors, was there my last 2 years in high school. And so because God gifts you for specific reasons, for specific purposes, I knew that God wanted me to use music somehow, right? And so I went to Bob Jones University and majored in Bible my first year, and then changed to church music, and was able to graduate then. Got the privilege of traveling all around the country with different people on faculty, the president of the university, and then traveling for the school on a ministry team. And just really enjoyed that. Loved serving in churches, loved being with people, staying with people, ministering to people. And so I think probably that solidified in my heart what God wanted me to do. When I was in high school, I remember telling my dad that I wanted to be a music director when I grew up. At my home church, Burge Terrace Baptist, I was very much influenced by the music director there, Paul Hiscock. And he was 2 years, he was my summer camp counselor when I was in junior age, primary and junior age, and I love that. I got so lucky to have him, I felt. And so because of his influence and because of other people's influence in my life, I decided to follow the route of ministering in music. Was able to do an internship my second to last summer in college at my home church under him. And that kind of solidified everything. Nothing went horribly off kilter. So I was like, I can do this. I can do this. I love being with people. I love helping the next generation. That's my passion. And so, adults are fun and good. And I want to work with them and train them for excellence in the local church, because ultimately that excellence is for the glory of God. But I love training the next generation specifically, chorally, pianistically, vocally, instrumentally, play the trumpet and organ too, and just have seen some wondrous success stories with students that I've had go on to bigger and better things and far exceed me in education and degrees and go places in the world. So that's exciting. So I love that.
And even now, you were mentioning about how your desire to go into music ministry started here at Burge Terrace, and you've kind of come full circle.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Where now you're, the music pastor at Burge Terrace.
Yeah.
And now you're equipping people like me in choir.
Yes.
More like putting up with people like me in choir. But
no, you're doing a great job.
Okay.
You're doing a great job. I've been so encouraged.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure at first, right?
Yeah.
Because you had never been in choir.
Bad.
You had never, not really bad, you just never done anything, right? It's like the first time you pick up a basketball. It takes time, right?
What do I do with this?
Right, exactly. So no, it's been fun, and it's good, and every year I want to get better, right? And so
relentless pursuit of perfection.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I'm excited.
That's good, and you're doing a great job. You keep it very energetic. It is not boring. It's not a boring atmosphere at all.
Oh, good.
So
because it's a sin to be boring.
It is?
It really is a sin to be boring, yes.
That's interesting.
Yep.
I got to look at my Bible and see if I can...
Well,
can you quote a verse?
I can quote lots of verses, not to specifically say it's a sin to be boring, but the application would be there, right? And so as we're doing our very best for the glory of God, do all things to the glory of God, it says in 1 Corinthians, I would say if you're boring, that does not give God the most glory. So the application of that would be, I'm not going to be boring, so I'm not sinning.
So the next question I want to ask you is, what is some advice you would give to your younger self when you first went into ministry? Maybe some just thoughts you were grappling with. What is something that, you would encourage yourself with now that you've gone through, a good portion of your ministry? That's a good question, and something to consider, although I try not to look in the rearview mirror that much. I would say that people are the main thing over performance. That God has given each of us abilities, and we are to use them for His glory. Not that I didn't know that, but it's very easy for when people
say, wow, you did a great job, for it to go to your head, right? And so as guys, we struggle with pride, right? And so the most besetting sin probably that I would have would be pride. And so knowing that God hates pride, and it's one of the 7 sins that he specifically mentions in Proverbs that he hates, probably would do more to showcase a level of humility and to not, while I try to deflect praise, to be very careful that it doesn't go to my head.
Makes sense.
People are important. People have different needs. And when you go into it very idealistically, you don't think about maybe everybody doesn't need to be approached or talked to or worked with in a cookie cutter manner. It's all different. Right. So that's one thing that I would not have considered before.
That's a good reminder for me personally. I think you're more in the realm of like really confident and maybe sometimes slightly overconfident. I'm in the realm of like being critical of everything and like, oh, but that should have been better. That wasn't good. If I was that person, I would do this, this, and this. And that is also another form of pride, is that, we should be discerning. It's not like we just go around in life, oh, everything will turn out fine. But, treating others the way we want to be treated. And I don't like to be constantly criticized about every single little thing. Understand, sometimes music, it's different. You need to fix everything. I mean, that's just the nature of it. But generally in life, there is a certain amount of grace that you give. And, I guess that is in choir too.
Yeah, even today. Yeah. I try to be positive in so many ways to different people that I normally, I don't think to be positive about. And so are you more negative?
I am definitely more negative.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like a very driven, negative person.
Wow. I'm a very driven, positive person.
Yeah, I wish I had that positivity.
And I'm glad I don't have negativity.
But two negatives, though, equal a positive.
That's true.
So if I marry someone who's negative...
I don't know.
That's not how that
works. Scripture.
Yes, that thing. Oh, yeah, that's what this podcast... It's a Christian podcast, right? We're supposed to use the Bible. But no, for instance, my favorite verse is Proverbs 3:5.
Yes.
Which is, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. So by constantly critiquing everybody's little issue, you're kind of leaning on your own understanding instead of trusting God like, hey, God's working in that person's life. Give them grace.
Right.
Do these biblical principles that are laid out in Scripture. Care about them. Be sympathetic. Be thoughtful. I struggle, especially in like the sympathetic realm. So... thank you for sharing that.
And sometimes I joke that I have the gift of kindness.
Yeah.
Which I don't necessarily. But it's very important when you think about the whole scheme of things to treat people kindly. This is so important.
It is.
Because they'll catch the kindness. It's very good.
And that's what unbelievers notice is different about us, is that we have a love for each other. And we're not just a bunch of workspace, we just do this thing and we're good people. It's like, I'm going to love you and I'm going to care about you and I'm going to put you first over myself. So I'm going to ask you a question that might be a little bit controversial. And so I'm curious what your takes on this is going to be.
You want a hot take?
Hot take. Essentially, yeah. You could put hot take label, editor. Do that right now, right here. What do you believe defines good Christian music from bad Christian music?
Well, I think how you worded that is very subjective, right? What do I think?
It is pretty, yeah. This is your opinion. It doesn't mean everybody's going to necessarily align exactly.
So would bad Christian music, wouldn't that be an oxymoron?
It could be.
Is it possible to be a bad Christian?
Well, Christians are not perfect people.
Right. And we all grow in sanctification at different times, right?
So to a certain extent, sometimes we can be bad Christians.
Okay.
So,
I see what you're saying. Well, let's focus on good music. Okay. I would say, in my opinion, that there are a lot of elements to good music. Okay. For Christian music, the first and most important driving element would be what? I'm now turned into interviewer. Very good. The lyrics, the text, right? So automatically I know if it's no good, if the lyrics contradict Scripture or are in some ways watering down Scripture, right?
Lacking in truth.
So, yes, okay. Or even just wishy-washy, right? Is that really a Christian song? Or could it be a love song? There's not specific, ways to look at those lyrics that, oh, wow, that's talking about my God. So I would say, first of all, is the text, the lyrics, and then making sure that the melody, the creative elements of the music lift up, help that text.
Draw our eyes to Christ.
And just really the words of the text need to match. There are so many songs that have been written that really have okay words, but the music just doesn't accentuate them. And so I would say when I'm trying to discern what to sing on a Sunday, okay, there's millions of songs I could pick, right? Okay, because in my opinion, they're Christian, but are they the best? Do they help us worship? And that people come down in different ways. There are some songs, some musical numbers that are Christian. That is just not my preference, right? And so I'm not going to say they're bad. For years, people said, oh, that's bad music, right? Well, that's very arrogant of them. I'm going to say it's not the best for me, or I don't prefer it, okay? But I'm not going to say that's bad music. Growing up, we looked at some churches and some ministries, and we're not going to go there because they have bad music. Well, that was just shouldn't have been as thought or said. It was music that we don't feel best honors God, or it's music that we don't feel really allows itself to make the text preeminent. So that's kind of where I come down there. I think it's silly, and we cannot be consistent to judge music by who wrote it. Yeah, and that's just a danger that people get in, and they're trying to be careful, but it's really fear-based a lot of times. And so we got to be careful with that. If we have to be consistent, then we have to throw out a lot of the songs that we love that have been written down through the centuries that are in our hymn books because that person was whatever. So,
and I've kind of realized that as I've grown as a Christian, that just trying to have like a balance. We're all going to have different opinions. Like I probably have different musical preferences than you do. Like there's some songs that'd be like, oh, that's a good song. Others would be like, and it might see differently. But what happens is sometimes we make preferences like a law. Like you are a bad Christian if you listen to this music, and you go, and where is that in the Bible? It's like the Bible gives principles about discretion and God honoring, but we have to take preferences into consideration
and love, right?
And love.
Okay, so I might not agree with you, but I'm still going to love you, and that's not going to be a test of fellowship. And I just don't agree. But you know what? You get your own church, and you do it that way, and God bless you, right? So that'll be good.
Unification among believers is important, and unfortunately, a lot of times, you see tons of separations.
Right. So Chris Anderson is coming out with a book. It hasn't been, it's been published, but it has not come out yet. And it's, I can't remember the title exactly, but something about the schism of separation, or how we are so fragmented and it's got to be our way, or we have to separate from them. And I'm really curious to see that book and to read it. It sounds excellent.
I think I might want to read that too. I know we sing sometimes Chris Anderson songs here, and I like his songs. Is he the one that wrote Christ is Sufficient, or was that?
You know what I think, was that Andy Gleiser?
It might have been. I don't remember. Yeah. That's one of my personal favorites.
Yeah, he might have done Christ is Sufficient. I think maybe he did, actually. I get them confused in some ways.
Yeah.
But, I think he probably did write Christ is Sufficient. Not sure who wrote the music. I don't think it was Greg in that one. But, yeah.
So I'm going to move on to the next question, which asks, how do you stay focused on God even when difficulties arise in ministry? So maybe there's a turbulent time, or there's just a trial in life, or whatever. What are things that you do personally to help you keep your focus on God? Like just practical tips.
Number one is I'm a very positive person.
Well, I don't have that, so we can skip that point. Okay.
And so you need to be very careful to not be always looking in the rearview mirror. Look forward and not in reverse. People are going to disappoint you. I'm going to disappoint others. Okay. So I know that nobody is perfect. And so when people do wrong to me, how did Christ react?
Goes back to love.
When people did wrong to him. And did they do so much more wrong to him than they ever will do to me? Yes. So that's kind of how I treat things. I try to forget, and I have, for whatever reason, I have the ability to a lot of times forget bad things. I don't dwell on them. I don't see somebody say, "Oh my word, can you believe what he said about me in that deacon's meeting?" Or "Can you believe what he did here and what he said to others?" Or the insinuations that he made about my character. So I try not to remember those, right? So then I can truly be fine with them. And you know what? If they ask forgiveness, many times I'm like, "Oh man, that I totally forgive you."
And he must forgot about it.
Yeah, right. And that's a nice thing. Now, everybody's personality isn't like that. Okay. And so, but I try hard. My wife would be different, right? She would dwell on things, and it just causes some angst, right? And she'll bring up anecdotes. Do you remember when that? Man, I don't remember that. And now she thinks I have Alzheimer's because I forget things, right? But that's a good thing. That's a good thing to not remember everything.
I like what you said about thinking about all that Christ did for me and all that he forgave me from, and keeping that like the focus when someone wrongs you. It's like, hey, I'm getting mad. So-and-so, said this to me and it offended me. Like, oh, you look ugly today. I don't know, whatever. And thinking like, well, compare that to all that I've done to Christ. As an unbeliever. Sometimes when we've been saved at an early age, it's hard for us to realize like, I wasn't that bad at 4 years old.
What we were saved from. There was not a lot. Yeah, one sin, and that nailed Christ to the cross. So, yeah.
And just thinking of all the punishment and all the things he had to go through to save us, it can be like, wow, that's amazing love. That's amazing grace. Now let's treat others the way we want to be treated and apply that. And that's
hard as a teen, right?
That is hard as a teen, especially because when you're a teen, you're extra worried about what everybody's thinking.
Totally.
There's probably an extra level of sensitivity.
But maybe I should care more.
Yeah.
But try not to make. Yeah, right. Try not to make what other people think of you so ultimately important that it's hard to be yourself. But we always want to be pleasing to people. We don't want to irritate them, and we want to be on people's good side. We want to be naturally part of the cool group, right?
Yeah. We don't want to be the outsider.
Right. But man, sometimes
it's hard.
The crowd isn't always right. Sometimes the outsider is where Christ wants you to be, taking a stand for right and get out of here. You know what I mean?
That's good. That's really good. So the fifth question I want to ask you is, what is your advice to men wanting to go into specifically a music ministry? So this is similar to like, what advice would you give yourself? But this is more like in a broader sense, like anyone going into a Christian music ministry, whether it's, creating music for churches or serving as a pastor. Just what is some advice you would give?
Make sure you're called to it.
Yeah.
A lot of people think they're called to it and they don't have the giftedness, right? And I'm tired of poor Christian musicians.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sends the wrong message. And so make sure you're gifted that way. Make sure the calling that you feel and that you are sensing is truly a calling and not just something you want to do, because there's no money in it.
Yeah.
So that's easy. But make sure that it's something that you are absolutely gifted and called for. God won't call you to something where he hasn't gifted you.
I like that. Like, for instance, I don't think I'm the worst, choir person or handbell person, but I don't think it's like my best skills. It's it's harder for me to get it down in my brain, like how everything works.
You could grow though, right?
I could grow. So there is a fine line,
right?
Like growth, but also like, are you kind of naturally good, or do you have to like it's just painful almost?
And some people are they're better at understanding others because they've had to work hard at the skill, right? So you naturally are good at basketball, maybe. I'm maybe not so. So I had to work harder. So I appreciate it better.
I had to practice a lot of basketball.
Yeah, but so it's that's the number one thing. Make sure you're not only called, you're sure of that calling, but you're gifted. Number two, make sure you go somewhere that can accentuate and help that training instead of just going anywhere to college is what I'm thinking. Very, very important.
Using discretion.
Absolutely. And you're going to college to get an education. Be very careful that you don't confuse why we go to college. All right. And so make sure they have excellent training. And then thirdly, make sure that as a Christian, because we're going into the ministry, you put God first. It's easy to get distracted by the talents and abilities you've gotten and to put God to the side, right? It's easier for me to do that. Put God first. Make sure that you know that He is number one and He is going to use you to accentuate His glory to others.
That's good. And, you brought up a point about, when you're performing, sometimes it's harder to have that Christ first mindset. And it's probably even the same for like a pastoral role, like in the preaching sense. You're being viewed by a congregation. And so in a way, it is a little bit of a performance, even if you're preaching. So having that, others focused mindset and not what if I get something wrong and people laugh at me or they get upset at me? Like, don't have that selfish,
don't care as much.
Focus. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you don't want people to, but don't make it all encompassing. Oh my word. What did I just say?
Be thoughtful of others.
Yeah. Be very self-deprecated, self-deprecating. Be able to handle when you mess up.
Yeah.
Because nobody's perfect, right?
You all make mistakes.
Absolutely.
That's good. That's good. I got one more question for you. It's a bonus question.
Do I get points?
I could give you points. I am grading all this, so.
Okay, you good.
No. So what is, it's similar to what I asked you at the beginning, but what is your single favorite hobby that's away from any music or ministry? And I'm going to add this to make it harder for you, away from family and bowling.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Super easy question.
Okay.
Super easy question.
Congrats.
I love playing darts.
Okay.
I love throwing darts. I love doing it with guys. In my former ministry, we had an octet, and we met every single Thursday at 8 o'clock. And so we would practice for 45 minutes to an hour. We performed lots of places, specifically in our church. But after that, wherever house we were at, it was required if they were an octet, they had to have a dartboard.
Had to have the darts.
Had to have the dartboard.
Are you really good at darts?
I am decent. I'm not as good as the ESPN professionals that we see.
Well, most
We're
of us
frustrated. But we called our octet PTM Ministries, Press Toward the Mark Ministries.
That makes sense.
So so it was fun. We had a lot of great times. Stayed up a little bit too late on every Thursday night. That's all right, as long as I won.
As long as you won.
And we had some that had different levels of ability, right? Yeah. In fact, I was just up in Schaumburg a month ago, and one of my old octet members came over to the house where we were staying in. They have a dartboard, and we went downstairs, and the wives were talking, and we threw darts, and I won.
Naturally.
And so things don't change. No, I don't always win, and there are people in the octet
we're being
better
humble,
than better than I am. But we would always do teams, so it would always be me and somebody else. It wasn't individuals, and we would always pick different guys, right? And so the host would pick who the teams were. So if he wasn't very good, he's going to pick or we would just randomly, okay, the oldest person, the youngest person, put them together and birthday, and it was fun. Yeah. So I love darts.
That's good.
Soft tip darts.
Thank you for sharing all this.
Yeah.
Glad to have you along.
Yeah.
I called Pastor John Pate in the first interview a guinea pig.
Oh, yeah?
So you're not a guinea pig.
Yeah.
You're just guinea.
Oh, okay. I got it. Okay, I'll try not to be offended at that.
Okay.
And remember that you made fun of me.
This is application.
Yeah.
Where it really kicks in.
This is really good.
Alrighty. To live out what we teach.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you again for coming on. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you'd like to listen to more, click subscribe, follow. Links down below, information, all that fun stuff. And you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks for listening. We hope this podcast was a blessing to you. If so, please leave a comment down below. To support us, please subscribe or follow, depending on what platform you're listening to us on.